Sorry. Hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome everybody to the our 2020 look back. Looking back on 2020 with our LGBTQ community, particularly focusing on our Black LGBTQ and trans plus communities of color. And tonight we're going to just be having some open dialogue and conversations about where some of the things that we went through in 2020 and how we overcame those things and some of the things that we want to do looking forward to 2021. And we have a magnificent panel here to give us some insight on their experiences and their backgrounds and what they have, you know, their stories. So we want to definitely highlight our panel and have our panel introduce themselves. But before we do that, I definitely want to acknowledge Spoken Church Society for hosting this event and for helping to put this together. So thank you very much, Natalia. And if you can just introduce yourself and give a little bit about why we are doing this today. And yeah.
Okay, my name is Regina Livingston. And the reason we're here today is we are here to recap on what went on in 2020. We've had a tumultuous year. And now that we're going into 2021, we're going to discuss the good and the bad of last year. And we're going to discuss the upheave and where we're going with 2021.
And so we want to start first by introducing our panel. So we can just have our panel introduce yourselves. That would be really great. So if you guys can just give a quick briefing to the audience and just let them know a little bit about your background and what brings you to the conversation today. Then start with Eli.
Hey, what's up? My name is Eli. My pronouns are he, they, and I'm a community organizer for Black trans-led organizations globally. And I'm here to contribute to the analysis of what went down in 2020 and what we can do to move forward.
Thank you, Eli. Robin?
I'm Robin Harris, social justice activist. I wear many hats. Anywhere I can plug in, I try to do so, and so we can talk about that later on in the night. But yeah, I'm here in Orlando, Florida, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Yasmin?
Hi, I am Yasmin, aka Barbie. I am the LGBTQ homeless coordinator for One Orlando Alliance, as well as the visionary and co-founder of the RISE initiative, which is real inclusive, sustainable employment. I am also on many boards of organizations such as GAP, Divas and Dialogues, and now the All Black Lives Matter Fund initiative.
Carla?
Hey, what's up? I'm Carla A.K. Bam out of Atlanta, and I'm an advocate for the people. I'm here to just gain knowledge and just share what I learned and what I know and just continue to fight for the people.
Thank you for that. Now, before we get started, we have a treat, you guys. This is a beautiful young lady that I met here recently, and she did a spoken word, and I really was intrigued by her, and I really thought that this would be a great space for her to share. So if you could come on up, introduce yourself, and share for us.
Hi, so my name is Radera Paris Woods, and I work closely with youth, primarily working on inclusivity, and I am here to share a piece of my poetry. And the one I am going to share tonight is entitled Wake Up Black America. Wake up Black America, can't you tell that you're sleeping? Suppressed, depressed, and oppressed by people. Genocide like the Indians by the Europeans, promoting our enslavement while demoting our own people. Being blinded by the lie that we've come real far and now we're all equal. Ideological Ideological hegemony is a trick now they're using on our people. Wake up, Black America, can't you tell that you're sleeping? Years overdue of reparations we haven't seen, castrated, strangulated, demonstrated against. Never once did they repay for the many years of being whipped. 360 degrees of history repeating itself from manifested to latent re-enslavement of ourselves. Wake up, can't you tell that you're sleeping? Land of the free and the home of the brave, so why stereotypically am I not expected to be great? Freedom and equality push out by way of conformity. Subjective beings turned into commodities. Mass communications controlled by the elite flowing through our airways from what we see to what we read, from what we say to what we eat, implementing and indoctrinating us with their own ideologies. Wake up, Black America, can't you tell that you're sleeping? Puppets on a string being exploited in a show, while the elite in the audience encourages us to go, dropping it like it's hot and drinking a Patron from thug to video vixen, now promoting our own self-destruction. Can we do a better job of dismissing all the stereotypes? Wake up, Black America, can't you tell that you are sleeping? Don't you hear the voices of our ancestors, the cries of our people? We have gotten so disconnected from the struggle as a people. Remember, we came from the birthplace of civilization. We are people of color with grace and sophistication. Kings and queens, remember the first sign of life came from our nation. First physician, first philosopher, the most developed nation. Be strong, be wise, and take back who you are. Black men, lift up and love your women. Black women, help your men to be strong. Lend a helping hand, raise your sons to be a man. Be your brother's keeper and embrace your fellow man. Stand up as a people and be cohesive like glue. There's strength in unity and awareness at heart too. Come on, my people, let's revolutionize change, the harvest we've been reaping. Wake up, Black America, can't you tell that you are sleeping?
Thank you. Yes, I love it. Thank you so very much. Whew, that was very powerful. Thank you so much for those words to get us started in this conversation. And I think that was just a perfect piece to get us diving right into this conversation and talking about some of those very touchy things that, often get, left off of the conversation plate. So thank you again for that, my love. So we're going to dive right into some of the questions that we came up with to ask the panel and just to get everybody's feedback. And Natalia, if you can just help me out with those questions.
Okay, the first question is, how much progress have we seen towards visibility and inclusion amongst Black LGBTQ? How much progress have we seen towards visibility and inclusion amongst Black LGBTQ? I'll start off by answering that. It was last year. It actually was a lot of progress because we were having to connect a whole different type of way. We were quarantined, we were locked down, so we were contacting each other through the phone. We were contacting each other virtually. So This is a new, it was a whole new world for us. So that brought us, closer together. So there was a lot of togetherness that happened last year amongst the Black LGBTQ community.
Eli, you were going to add?
Yeah, it depends on how we're measuring the progress. So we have a few Black trans women that are gracing the screens of people's devices all over the world on various shows, no need to name them. And according to the Trans Murder Monitoring Project, about 350 trans people were murdered globally. 6% it's a 6% increase from 2019. 98% of those being trans femme and trans women, 79% of that being trans people of color. And I wish they cared enough to know how many of those people were Black when they say of color. We could probably guess a large percentage of those were actually Black people. So while there seems to be an idea that like Black LGBTQ people have made a significant progress, we got to look at the material of a global perspective, housing, healthcare. In most recent news, trans people were told that they can join the military, right? So some people will look at that as progress, but we got to look at the history of Black people, like non-trans Black people. What changed materially for Black people when they were allowed to participate in invading other countries and causing chaos for Black people? Is that progress? And do we as trans and LGBTQ people want to repeat the same mistakes for freedom? So as she said, there's been a lot of progress. And I think with the progress that's been made, it's good to interrogate what that looks like for us materially and globally, as far as housing, healthcare, as far as our lives go. And yeah.
Thank you for that, Eli. Robin, you wanted to add?
Yes, sure. So I really can't say too much more than what Eli has said, except for depending on how we measure it. I think because we realize that we are going to have to control our own narratives by our own methods, become creative. In that way, I would say that it's better because maybe we have realized we must continue to be self-determined in telling our own stories the way that it should be told, because it's the better is because of that, not because white people are getting better. It's not because of that. It's because I think we're stepping up and we're taking control of what and where our voices are being heard.
Agreed. Definitely agreed. But Yasmin, I keep wanting to call y'all by y'all nicknames. Y'all, please forgive me. Y'all know our relationships are endeared, so I keep wanting to call everybody by their nicknames. But Yasmin, if you could, if you wanted to add.
Yeah, I was just reading the question. How much progress have we seen towards visibility and inclusion amongst Black LGBTQ? I think that more recently we are seeing a centering of Black trans voices being highlighted more than we ever have before, notably because of the increased violence that has been plaguing the community, specifically trans women of color, Black trans women of color. I think that the fact that there's more light being shed on this epidemic, this craziness that's happening, I think that we tend to see more support, whatever that looks like, whether it's financially, verbally, spiritually. We are seeing a lot more empathy from within our sister communities, like the gay and LGBT, the gay and the lesbian and bisexual community. I think that as far from that front, I see a lot of forward movement, but I still think that there's still more work to be done. In my, I think that as far from that
Good.
front, I see a lot of
Bam. I'm sorry, Harbor.
You
Or
good.
Bam, if you're comfortable with me calling you Bam, I'm gonna keep saying Bam.
Bam is good.
Okay, Bam.
As far as visibility, I think we've been out there. We're probably a little more visible now. When I say, I mean, as far as LGBTQ community, but we talked about inclusivity. I think we got a ways to go with that, and I'm not just talking about within our own community, not just talking about outside our community. We got a long way to go, because I see it. How in Atlanta, at least, I can say. You can get excluded against your own kind, just like Blacks, so it's everywhere. So, yeah, as far as visibility, we out here, but inclusivity, I think we got some work to do. And I think that's with everything. That's just my opinion, but that's with everything. Yeah, as far as visibility, we out here.
Definitely agree with what everybody said.
Would it be possible to mute your mic if you're not talking, because it's giving a very terrible echo?
Is it mine? I think it might be Natalia, because she's running the Facebook as well. And then
I'm fixing it.
No, you're fine, Natalia. Can we go to the next question?
Okay. The next question is, how did our involvement in local and presidential elections differ in the last 4 years?
So I'll start with that one. So this year I did see an increase of at least the Black LGBTQ trying to be included in the whole election process this year. 4 years ago, or four and a half, almost 5 years ago, there was no visibility at all of Black LGBTQ in the process of voter education, GOTV efforts. None of those things did we have a specific space. So and this year we barely made it. And what I would like to see is for us to be able to empower our own communities, to be able to educate our own communities, and to be able to be a part of that process in an authentic way, to where we're actually reaching out to Black LGBTQ voters, to have their voices heard and to have a stake in this process. So that's my response. And I'll go ahead and let the panel answer as they wish. I'm not going to call anybody, but if you want to speak up and answer on how you feel the Black community was, or the Black LGBTQ was involved in the voting process, and what that looked like for the last 4 years, definitely jump in.
I'll go ahead and go. So, as you said, Cha-Cha, like visibly you saw a higher turnout. So in 2020 overall, they say voters turned out at like the highest level in the past 100 years. And they say some of that is thanks in part to the expansion of vote by mail. And then, like with everything, because of the system we live in, we have to look at what their response has been to that, right? There's been a whole bunch of legislations recently that have been introduced to continue to suppress the vote, because that's what we're talking about when we're talking about, like, you know, involvement with electoral politics. So across the country, 1 in 13 Black people can't vote, you know, due to disenfranchisement laws. 1/3 of the voters who have disability report difficulty voting. And the impact of the voter suppression has led to more organizing of our communities, as Robert has said. People are also largely organizing to survive outside of the system. You know, some people have opted to not legitimize the United States like empire through voting, and largely, I don't want to say that. Some of those people are the people who have their rights have been taken from them, or they advocate on behalf of the people whose rights have been taken for them. So there's been a variety of things that we're seeing happen. And I think the main thing that I appreciate that's coming out of this is we're seeing a lot of webinars. We're seeing a lot of opportunities for people to get educated. We're seeing a lot of people get more involved in ways to get in the building, to not to like, you know, keep their foot on people's necks, because while we may all have a different way that we organize, whereas like some people may be immersed in electoral politics, some people may not be immersed in that. However, we all have that same viewpoint of freedom, you know, and we all want to get there. So I think that overall we saw people get more involved, and that's inside and outside.
Right. Definitely agree.
So yeah, this is Robin. So I give hats off to folks that were involved on so many levels. And as Eli said, we got lots of voter suppression, candidate suppression for that much. We saw a lot of things that did not get addressed due to the COVID pandemic. People were still expected to do certain things, and that's probably a different topic. And maybe Eli can help me with this. I've seen for the past 4 years, data mismanagement, meaning inaccuracy.
Talk about it.
In data. For instance, I've knocked on the same door looking for the same person for 4 years. They still don't live there, and they're not going to live there. But there's an issue with I'll just call it I guess racist data, or so we have this suppression even in the data, and there's no one or who do we go to quote unquote fix that, because it does impede proper interaction when we're trying to collect right data and collect our voters. So it's nothing against those who are getting out. So again, like I said, people that I have not seen participate, whether it's GOTV or any of those things, they were out there, they were doing the work, and you made a difference. But we still had so many obstacles against us that it's questionable, and it's worth having more discussion about.
Definitely agree with that, Robin. Totally. And you know my involvement in the whole voting process. So yeah, definitely. Anybody else wanted to add to that question?
I think that the involvement in the local and presidential election differ in the last 4 years is because people were tired. Black people were tired of being oppressed. Black people were tired of our former president not acknowledging the white supremacy and what white supremacy has done to our country, whether it was the forefront or done in the shadows. It definitely played a major part in how the voting has been done previously, who was chosen to be our leaders of this country, and people got tired. And the difference from 4 years ago to this year is that 4 years ago there were laws that were being put onto the books that were protecting gay rights and trans rights, and then when he was elected, it all was abolished. So people got tired of feeling as if because they're a citizen of the United States and they are trans or gay, that they have to somehow be treated differently than any other constituent, than our cishet constituents. So people, yeah, they were going to come out because people got tired of sitting around and waiting for these quote unquote politicians to deliver the promises that they said that they would do. And when they get in office, they turn around and change the whole plan around. They take the trans people out of the military. They eradicate the protection from HUD for trans people, leaving hundreds of thousands of homeless people, trans people on the streets and being discriminated against in homeless shelters. So you damn right people were gonna get their ass up and go to that poll and make sure that their voice be heard and their face be seen, because we couldn't have lasted another 4 years with that pickle dick in office.
I love it.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
Bam.
Yeah,
That's
I
real.
think it was
You
great
ready for the
that
next question?
No.
I think it
Yes,
was great that everybody showed up like they did. And my issue is I've been voting since I was 18, so it's well over 30 years. But at the same time, I think I'm just voting our responsibility now, because watching these last 4 years, as much as I've been out here, and I'm in the trenches, I'm not out here writing down. I'm not one that you sitting down here that's gonna say the right words and all that. I'm not that person. You know what I'm saying? I ain't got all the lingo.
We
So
out
when
here.
I go, I'm going for the people. I'm going for, us. So I think it's great how everybody got out there and did that. But at the same time, I got a problem with I'm voting because you got to pass a law so I don't get killed because I'm black. I got a problem with that a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So, we gotta be fighting for that kind of shit. You know what I mean? So I think I'm gonna vote, and I ain't gonna tell people not to vote. But why I gotta be out here? I don't know. I guess I'm just gonna be in the hood where the people need me. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna let the people who got to be out there. You know what I'm saying? I'm supporting them. But yeah, I don't agree with a lot of shit. I can't wait on the politicians, because in Atlanta, they ain't doing what they're supposed to do. Hey, I praise I'm all for our black mayors and our black politicians, but they ain't doing what they're supposed to do down here. You know what I mean? That stuff y'all see on the news, I ain't finna give Keisha all that praise. I ain't finna front like that. You know what I'm saying? Cause I'm here. I'm glad she down there, but you ain't doing what you're supposed to do. When you came out here in the community and you wanted our votes, we was all for you. You went to high school with us. We saw you out here. You grew up with us. But when you got down there, like my people said, you forgot about us, because now you just, you line in your pocket. You still got this jail open down here. You've been promising to close since you've been in office. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I just got a problem with, I guess it's more so the politicians, and the praise people give them, because they don't do what they're supposed to do. You know what I mean? If you're doing your job, that's one thing. But if you just out there, yeah, I can't support that. But I'm glad people showed up, though.
I feel you. I can definitely relate. Definitely can relate. And we definitely, I think as a community too, we just have to start holding people accountable for you know, when they do come and solicit us for our votes, when they do throw rainbows, because I think I made the announcement this year that rainbows won't get you in the office, you know, and rainbows aren't going to keep you in the office. You can put on your little rainbow, you know, little stickers and your little ribbons and whoop-de-whoop. But if my community does not feel the effects of what you're doing for the quote unquote rainbow community, then I have a problem with that. And that's what me and my community need to come together and figure out how to hold you accountable for the things that you've made us promises for and got us riled up to support you. Because you know, sometimes when one of us move, a lot of us move. And I don't think they recognize the influence that we have amongst each other. Natalia, go ahead. Natalia.
The next question is how will I,
And I'm trying to stop calling you. I'm not.
What did you say?
Go ahead.
Okay. How were our communities directly impacted by COVID, and how were we uplifted and responded to in our time of need? Well, I'm gonna say our community, particularly in my area, was responded to whenever they got around to us. You know, it wasn't a quick response. It impacted us greatly. It was scary. It was, you know, everybody was closing down. No one was reaching out. And at that point is when I knew that Unspoken Treasure was going to have to stand in the paint and do what they had to do, because I mean, all the bigger organizations closed their doors and didn't want nobody there. You know, their doors were closed and locked. Okay. Right. And all the executives all over the place, they was locked in quarantine. So that, so at that point, we had to stand on the front lines and we had to still feed those people. I do service at all three of my jobs. So I was still going to all three of my jobs serving the community, or my organization being another. So as far as what the government or the city or the mayors did, it was a lot of nothing. Eventually they got around to us with them half-ass stimulus checks and prolonging the evictions and stuff. But the evictions, that didn't even last long. They were still throwing people out on the streets. You know, it's honestly been a whirlwind. It's been a whirlwind.
And totally agree.
Well, I can go ahead. Say being the homeless coordinator in Orlando for One Orlando Alliance, I did see a need for increase of financial assistance and housing assistance and food assistance. And we tried our best to mobilize ourselves in a way where we could assist the community. Unfortunately, the resources were not as plentiful as it needed to be, but things like organizations like Gender Advancement Project, Divas in Dialogue, you know, One Orlando Alliance, and the LGBT Center of Orlando did do their best to assist the way that they could have assisted. We offered many micro grants to individuals who needed financial assistance. Now, granted, the government could have did a lot more, but we really didn't know what they were up against, to be quite honest. So I don't 100% blame them, but I do also feel like they could have done more. So it's kind of half and half for me. Like, we can't entirely blame them if they weren't prepared for it, but we can't also blame them when we can blame them for bailing out the large corporations before they bailed out the impoverished communities, because those were the most impacted and affected. It wasn't the rich people who have these big multi-billion-dollar organizations that were suffering. It was the poor people in the hood who couldn't feed their kids because the job shut down and they didn't have nowhere to go and they didn't have no money that needed those bailouts. It wasn't the large corporations who needed millions of dollars. I think that maybe they should have restructured that in a way that it looked well, in a way that it was more, not just look, but it was more beneficial to the people in the community rather than the big Fortune 500 companies who weren't even paying the staff because they were put on furlough.
Great point.
Absolutely right.
It makes
That's
me
a
think
great
about
point.
how TGIJP is in California, right? That's where the base of that is. And many of the members there are houseless or housing unstable. And when this started, they put a stay-at-home order, right? But if you don't have a home, how you going to stay at home, right? So what happened for houseless people? You know what I'm saying? So how you going to abide by that? So it for specific example is TGIJP expanded to prioritizing providing housing for our members. Now, what we witnessed is globally, Black trans people, especially those that are migrants, especially those that are sex workers, were disproportionately impacted by the pandemic due to inequalities and social differences.
And
So,
in a,
on another hand, there were a lot of mutual aid work that was done in concentrated areas. So it was phenomenal to see the way people showed up in some areas for Black trans people in a very material way. However, it wasn't something that was felt worldwide. Like Natalia said, right there, you know, down the block in the South, they didn't have access to certain stuff, and she had to go front lines to handle certain things. So for me, I think the impact overall was that Black people thrive off of meeting together in person, building, eating, dancing, educating, learning, healing. And the pandemic kind of took that away from us. And you can't do everything virtually. So I think that kind of took a piece away from us. But I think what it did also is it kicked something into another gear where we've been being innovative and figuring out ways to get to our people in the community. As Bam said, the people is in the streets. The people are not, you know, everybody's on these Zoom meetings for hours and hours talking about what to do for the people, and people are there hungry, you know. So I think that was a part of the overall impact of COVID.
Yeah, I think that the government very well is responsible for their irresponsibility that's happened nationwide. I can never give them, because anything they did, that was a reasonable service to do. And so, as always, whether it was the Spanish flu or yellow fever epidemic, Black people have always taken the blunt, and all we hear are the numbers of how we've died and how many lives were lost. We hear that over and over because of underlying conditions. And even with that, those underlying conditions came because we were kidnapped from the continent, brought here, and genetically we've been fed cornmeal and fat for generations and generations and generations. So we have those underlying conditions because of the colonizers that are here in this nation. So it's still their fault, and we're due reparations of health care. We should be the very first people that are taken care of because of what's happened to us and has never been eradicated. So we are going to. I would like to see more Black people be able to create our own mutual aid efforts. And you are doing that because there are some wonderful other mutual aid efforts that are like mixed with people of color, white people. But if we had like our own, say like our own Black Red Cross or those things but we need resources as well. But yeah, Orlando is responsible, Orange County is responsible for what has happened. Unemployment skyrocketed, evictions skyrocketed, moratoriums have ended for some people. So yes, they are guilty as hell, but we're going to have to be self-determined and heal our own people.
And let me just speak on some of these resources for a moment, because I did hear about Yasmin mention about the resources that were available. Yes, there were resources available. How accessible were those resources is another ball game.
Amen.
It's very easy to say that there are resources available when you can handpick the amount of people that you bring around to get those resources. When those resources are not being filtered out into a community of people that have hundreds and hundreds of people in it, and you're only able to, sustain 5 or 10 or 20 people out of an entire community of people. And then when you're able to issue out those fundings and you can almost count how many African American, Black or people of color or Caribbean descent have gotten the benefits from those, then no, it is not, it's not, being fairly distributed, nor is it being comprehensive to people that aren't used to being in a system, because people don't understand if you're used to being in a situation where you can't help yourself, it's probably easy for you to navigate through certain channels. When you're not used to being in a position where you have to go to people for help, and then you have to go through a very difficult and tedious process in order to get that help, then it's almost like the help is not available. If I gotta bring you blood samples and plasma samples in order to get this help, then what good is the help? So I think that, yes, there was help available. Was there a whole lot of stipulations on the help? Yes, there was. And I think that is more damaging. That's more damaging than not having help, to know that it exists but you don't have access to it. So that's,
I just want to respond to that. I absolutely agree that the fact that the resources were available at such a minimalist way, and then what you had to go through to get it, made it even more arduous and more difficult. It tends to make more people not want to come forward than to come forward to ask for the help. I 100% agree with you. I was a part of the process of trying to get these funds distributed, so I know what you guys had to go through to get it. And I've spoke about that on many occasions where we talked about the red tape, right? Red tape in normal situations would be exclusively talking about neighborhoods or blocking out certain neighborhoods for certain ethnicities or racial backgrounds to be a part of. The same thing could be applied when it comes to the distribution of funding from philanthropy and for mutual aids efforts, right? Nothing is ever that easy when it comes to giving money away. And I think that when they're talking about helping the most marginalized communities, they need to understand what that looks like from a traumatic standpoint, what it looks like from a comprehensive standpoint, and what that also looks like from a able standpoint, meaning are these people able to access these funds? What are they having to go through to get the money? Is it a bus ride, several bus rides, 3 hours of a bus ride? Is it that they have to get on a computer and fill out all these applications that they really don't know how to read?
Exactly.
Are you asking for documentation from people who don't have employment, which means that you're excluding a very large part of the community, which are some are sex workers, some are entertainers, some are not even employed by legal corporate standards of what is considered to employment. So when you talk about creating funding and having resources available, I think it's important to make sure that it is fully inclusive and fully comprehensive to the community that we are trying to serve. And if you are trying to serve the most marginalized community, it's important to really understand what that community looks like and what the efforts would be for them to be able to attain those resources.
Perfectly said.
I agree.
Perfectly said.
Hey, I thought you was going to say something. I just wanted to say, to me, it's funny how during COVID, all this money just started appearing that, that they didn't have, and they was able to do all this stuff all of a sudden, I think it's great, but, where was it, but anyway, in Atlanta, we got a bunch of organizations, like I'm sure y'all know. I've been in transition. COVID hit at the time I lost my mama last year. I just lost my mom and my home, and then it was COVID. So I've been in transition like a whole year, you know what I'm saying? And there's many organizations that I've worked with. I ain't even gonna call the names. A couple of them dropped me a couple of $100, but you have to understand Atlanta. I was up in a hotel for 3 months, you know what I'm saying? And I reached out. I don't believe in handouts, you know what I'm saying? I work for whatever, and I still be out here in the trenches. I still register people to vote, while I was in transition. I still work with the elders. I do what I got to do. Again, our people need us. And I'm not going to sit back and wait on somebody to tell me how much money they're going to give me to take care of my people when I know I grew up in this hood. So I'm just go over here. We're going to do what we got to do. But when we start doing what we got to do to get what we got to get, don't come over here tripping, because we know how to survive, because that's what we do, But like I said, the money is here. I don't know what they're doing with it, but I know a lot of people who are still, we got a whole bridge under 20. a whole tent city out here. You know what I'm saying? And we go feed people. People out there, they got sofas. They living out there. They straight. You know what I'm saying? So, and they right. I'm talking about they in downtown Atlanta. So the city of Atlanta, y'all got to look out y'all window and see these people up on this bridge. But Atlanta good for slapping you $1,000 and putting you on, giving you a bus ticket and telling you not to come back. They did that during those Olympics in '96. So they good for putting you on the bus and you can't come back down here. But I don't know if they do that in other cities, but Atlanta do that. And yeah, it's crazy how they do the homeless and everybody else down here. But see, because I fall under so many umbrellas because I'm Black first, I'm a female, I'm LGBTQ, I'm formerly incarcerated. I don't even know what else the hell I am, but I'm falling into everything, you know what I'm saying? But it's hard to get some funds. I can't go to the shelters unless I'm getting my ass whooped and I got some kids and I'm HIV positive. Sad to say, but that's the only way you can get in the shelter as a Black female in Atlanta, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, we got work to do, you know, and yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, I don't know where the funds at, but it's out here because they looking good riding around with their red bottoms and things. So the money here, I don't know where it's at.
I just want to address another thing really quick about Black organization mobilizing to bring more efforts to the Black community. The problem about philanthropic efforts is that most likely that is not something that is really trickled down into the Black community because that system was not built for us. Philanthropic efforts is rooted in white supremacy, which is why you don't very rarely see a lot of Black multi-million-dollar organizations that are out here doing the work because it was never created for us to have it in the first place. White supremacy is not simply only based on systemic issues and financial or socioeconomic issues. It's also in philanthropy. Even in the community of the LGBT community, the white organizations happen to always have more funding and resources available to them than the Black organization, which is why the Black organizations or the Black visionaries are always working under those organizations as an effort to try to be included in what's going on, right? So if we want to see more philanthropic efforts, we need to figure out where we can get those funding from that is not necessarily from non-colored people, right? That are going to be generous givers and donors that believe in the efforts of the betterment of the Black community and specifically with the emphasis on LGBT part of it, because the Black LGBTQ community is the most marginalized of the Black community. Then there are women and then Black men. And of course it goes up and up and up and up, right?
You better speak. Now you said that. You said that. That's real. That's real and exactly what's going on.
I'm just gonna listen. Go on.
Okay. What progress was made to uplift our voices and have seats at the tables to implement change?
Okay. So progress in terms of resources is often made off the blood of dead Black trans person, specifically Black trans women. The progress often, as she just said, does not directly result in Black trans people being at less risk for violence or like having more material, benefits, but it acts as a band-aid while harm is still inflicted on the community. So Yasmin also said earlier that like progress was being made in one term because people are tired. People are continuing to disrupt spaces, whether space is being made for them or not. Like that's really what's continuing happening. There hasn't been much of like a systemic change. The system is still here, and we have Black people holding seats of power, like Bam said, and what they're doing is they are doing their job because they're upholding the agenda of the government that has been built off of and sustained off of the exploitation of Black people globally. So we're now in a position to strengthen what the fight is about, right? And be inquisitive on what the goal. Do we want to squeeze money out of the US imperialist system that's exploiting our kin in the global South and Africa? Or do we want to destroy the system and put something else in its place? $740 billion. I can't even imagine how much money that is. $740 billion was put into the US military. So there's plenty of money to take care of people, but we see how money is often spent to ruin lives. So again, we have to be acquisitive. Do we want to redistribute the money to our people without taking into account for our kin in other places, and thinking as long as our people are not free in Africa, we ain't free here. So for me, the progress is about destroying the system that's in place now and putting something better in its place. And everybody on this call is working towards that, because we're all working towards building sustainable institutions that will be around after this empire falls.
Love it. Love it.
That's true.
Repeat the question again, Natalia. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
What progress was made to uplift our voices and have seats at the tables to implement change?
Okay. Go ahead, Robin.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of work done. We saw a great organizing job in Georgia by Stacey Abrams.
Yes.
Organizing job, even by our own here, Cha-Cha, Miles, you guys did wonderful work. The issue that I have with that was everything that Eli said. It's still steeped. Unfortunately, they take what we have. They take our talents and our time, and it's still steeped in colonialism and in imperialism. And we're not going to be able to reap the benefit. And so it's this our challenge is the system. It's not each other, but it's a system. They're still slamming our babies on the floor, because of power. We've been saying for 8 years, Black Lives Matter, but we still got hashtags. And so now what we need to say is Black Power matters, because our life won't matter until we get economic equity and we get political equity. I know that I tend to look at politics through a third-party lens, and I know that Biden, he cannot, because he's steeped in his own white premises, and he cannot deliver for us what we need to have delivered. We're going to have to deliver for ourselves. We're going to have to dismantle this system, not only defund the police, but I won't even say that on that because I don't want this Zoom thing to be locked up. But we're going to have to become our own police.
You know they'll do it, girl, especially on my live. But I agree with you 100%. So what I saw, as far as visibility, I saw a lot of tokenism. I saw a lot of who can get a Black person in our organization the quickest to make us look like we're doing the right thing. Okay. That's what I saw. I did not see a lot of empowering those same people to build and to have their own networkings and to do their own thing. I saw them being recruited, and I saw, and this was not just in Orlando, Florida, because as you all know, I advocate across many, different states. So this was not just in one area. This was across a couple of states, that there was this handpicking of African-American, Black, Caribbean individuals to put them in spaces and places, almost like to prove that there was this equality going on. There's always this image of equality that's being, that's a facade of the LGBTQ, that we are just this, this melting pot of people that just kind of blend together, and that's just not the case. And again, this is a global thing. This is not your city, my city, your state, my state thing. This is a global thing where Black, brown, I'm going to say Black individuals are being tokenized at a very high rate because of the agendas that have been set forth, and because everybody wants to appear to be of this equality, image. I see a lot of my Black queens and kings being used, and that put in that being said, you almost it's almost like being put between a rock and a hard place, because you want these people to be able to be in these positions, to be able to sustain themselves and to be able to have an income. However, and it goes back to what you said, Robin, do you dismantle it and then come up with a better system, or do you dismantle it and then leave people kind of distraught and not knowing what to do? So that's kind of like, you know, being between a rock and a hard place where you want to go, hey, you don't need to do this. But at the same token, you know, do we leave that person in that position just so that we have an inside person in that position so that we can kind of maneuver it in a different way? And I think that people are fine in the positions that they're in as long as they recognize and realize what is going on in their surroundings and what their actual position is in that space for. And somebody can speak to that if you
Okay,
would.
so I don't necessarily think that tokenization is the worst thing, because I would say this: tokenization allows visibility to happen, right? At some point, we're all going to be tokenized, whether we like it or not, right? It's what you do when you're put in that position that makes the difference. Are you going to be in that position to be their lamb, to be just the person that just be their yes ma'am, no sir type of person? Or are you going to be the person that's going to get in there and try to evoke changes and force them to see what their privilege look like versus what your disprivilege look like? I think that people have to understand that sometimes it's not always what you do when you get in there, but also what you do when you're put in that environment to make a change, right? Because you being like, let's use Barack Obama as an example. People thought that just because a Black man who was married to a Black woman that had Black kids being put in a position of being the leader of the free world, that somehow that would change everything for Black people, but that did not. And forever they're blaming this man for what he did not do for Black people. But what he did do was give little Black boys and little Black girls an opportunity to see someone like themselves in a position of power where they can make some changes, right? Now, there are a lot of compounding and intersectional things that took place that made it very difficult for him to do the job that we would have wanted him to do. But we also have to give him credit for being able to stand in there for 8 years and do the job that nobody else could have done in any other position or any other way. So when I say that tokenization is not always a bad thing, it is about what you do when you get put in into that position. So if they're choosing people that they can control, then that means that they have the upper hand. But if you make yourself be a person that make them choose you, you get the upper hand on how they handle you because you control the narrative at that point, right? For example, you and I don't know if you still are employed with One Orlando Alliance. We were chosen. Oh, okay. But we were chosen to be in a position, and you and I are not people who are quiet, who are meek, who aren't going to speak up. We are very loud and proud and very much who we are, and we speak our minds. Now, I'm not stepping on the toes by putting the agenda of Black trans folks on the spotlight, because guess what? That's what my job was to be here, was to highlight the differences of treatment, the differences of access to resources, the differences in the way the community is handled. And guess what? I'm starting to make changes and I'm starting to see changes. And we see that there are other organizations that are coming up right below our eyes that are starting to make the very same changes. And these are people of color. So without people like me that have to be the martyr and be tokenized, there would be no opportunity for the rest of us to be in these positions.
Totally agree, because without people like me, none of this would even be happening, because I was the only person that brought up that there were even issues within the LGBTQ community. There was not,
and you were the person that pretty much got
conversation.
Fired, so
there was no conversation. There was no conversation 4 years ago.
Right. You were the person that pretty much got me hired. So I got to give you credit. If it wasn't for a Black cisgender lesbian woman, I would not be in a position to be able to change lives the way that I'm doing and trying to do. And hopefully we'll be doing even greater in the future. But I thank you. I thank you as the person who made a way for me to be here.
But just know, Barbie, if I did, just know this. If I did not, because I'm very particular about who I, push the people in the direction of. So if I did not feel like you being in that position would put other people in a different position, You understand what I mean? So it's not always what we need to learn about tokenization is when we recognize that we're being tokenized, learn how to use it for us. Because you can use me as long as I can use you back. That's where I'm at right now. You can tokenize me. You can use me for my Black face, for my Black lesbianism, for all those boxes that you can check if you get me in your arena. Just know that when I get in there, I may not last long. Okay? I may not last long because the reason why you might have put me in that position will definitely be part of the reason why you get me out of that position. Because I'm not going to be quiet, and I am going to bring up things, and I'm going to say things like audit. You know, if we can't give an explanation as to why the dollars that are being specifically given for the Black community aren't going to the Black community, then we need to do some audits. And when you start flying those type of things away, then they kind of, you know, people don't want to, you know, but I'm okay with that as well, because I'm okay with being the person that gets put out of spaces. I'm okay with the person that doesn't have to be in spaces, but to know that there are people in place in those spaces that if I need to communicate or need to get something done, I can still do that. That makes sense.
Absolutely. And it may not have been your place to carry the torch forever, but what you did was you created the dialogue, you created the conversation, and you made people uncomfortable. By you making people uncomfortable, now they have no choice but to face it, right? And that's what mobilizing Black and brown people have done in the past 4 years, right? The effort of Black Lives Matter, the efforts of the trans visibility has made people who did not want to have this conversation very uncomfortable and forced to have this conversation, because there's no reason why in 2020 that there were 46 murders of trans people of color, and the 98% of them were trans women of color being Black, right? There's no reason why there are no federal protections across all the states of the United States protecting the most marginalized communities. And the fact that we have to continually out here shouting at the top of our lungs, saying their names, just proves that there is still lots more work to be done.
And what we have to understand too, they don't protect Black men, they don't protect Black women. So think about where Black trans may fall at on that list. Exactly. Got me? Or LGBTQ.
We on number 6. We on number 6.
Go ahead.
We on number 6. We on the 6th murder. We on number 6 right now. Number 6. We just found out today.
In 2020.
And it's still January. In 2021, exactly. We are on, we and every Black trans woman that's been murdered, every woman that's been murdered has been Black and trans. Okay. And
But we clapping for the success of white transgender woman being in the White House. Anyway, go to the next question, Talia.
Hello, Native too. We need to call it. It don't matter what
you better say it. You better say it.
What you bring?
How has violence, suicide, and acts of hate affected our trans communities and Black and brown LGBTQ?
I have a strong gotta go. So what I will say in short is we're losing our people, and it's causing a lot of pain. A lot of like trauma for a lot of people to work through. So I'll just say that.
But we also got to realize it's us that's taking us out. That's the sad part. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, well, I know most in Atlanta, most of the places I've heard, and my people, you know, it's always another person of color that's taken out, you know what I'm saying? And it's sad because I know I can go out and walk around Walmart, and it's like I had little dudes following me around. Y'all, they threatened because I look the way I do. So you know what I'm saying? It's crazy because the violence for real, you know what I'm saying? But like I said, it's always, you know, our own. So yeah.
But you know, it's one real quick. It's sad you say that because the intercommunity violence is so real because majority of the people that are killing the Black trans women, right, are Black cis men. So for me, that speaks volumes to what we need to be doing within our community. Like, you know, for me, I don't think the onus is on us. You know, like I've navigated my life as a trans man. I've navigated my life as a masculine lesbian like woman, and it's been violence coming from the same people either which way it was going. So we know what the key root of the problem is. And then my sister Erin Lang, I love her so much, she also like challenged people to say like, I mean, at some point we asking people who ain't got it to give to us, and this is no excuse at all, right? This is us just looking at the way this system is set up. and the way Black cis men are positioned in this system and the things that they are indoctrinated into and socialized and all that other nonsense. And I guess that puts us, unfortunately, it sucks, but it puts us in a position where we gotta, you know what I'm saying? We have to be vigilant about our education, which is a part of self-defense. And, you know, I appreciate you bringing it up that it really is, it is in our community. This is where we not looking to whitey or no non-Black person. This is our own shit. This is a conversation we can't even have on this Facebook Live. These are conversations that happens in people's churches, that's happening in somebody's grandma's, you know, living room. So, you know, that's the part of this that does get sad, is we are talking about something that's very personal, you know.
I
So
want to say this:
I
inter-community violence is the main reason why Black trans people are being murdered. But we also have to consider why this type of violence is even being allowed to happen, right? Because we have cisgender communities and also internally our LGBT community that express transphobia and homophobia and very negative and derogatory inflammatory things that incite these people. Although we don't control their actions, we do help control the narrative of how they see us. We need to normalize the understanding that trans people existed way beyond the time that we even could comprehend. It's not nothing new. I think the problem is when people continue to perpetuate that we are some type of like animaniac, some kind of alien, some kind of out of this world experience, that people tend to have shame and regret about it, which makes them internalize that and become violent, right? For example, the Black men that are killing us. These Black men are killing us not because they necessarily don't love us, because if you look at the history of it, the proximity of the violence done against trans women were done by people that they were involved with sexually or in some kind of way. So what does that say? It is not that these men are afraid of having intimate relationships with us. They're afraid of how society will treat them after this. Because why is that? Because we have desensitized the idea that trans people are actually people, right? And that comes from within our own community as well. The way we talk to each other, the way we describe each other, the way we treat each other. And then we expect the communities that are not a part of our internal communities to follow suit or not follow suit. You gotta start with how we treat ourselves and how we treat each other. And then we demand that treatment from others, right? So if we want people to stop treating us like we're disregardable, then you got to start treating us like we actually mean something to each other, like we're valuable. The problem when people have this black on black argument, right? It doesn't necessarily work, because if you're looking at it from a scale of proximity, of course it's going to look like it's a lot more violence done within black on black crime. But if you ever look at the data of white trans women being murdered, you probably wouldn't find it, because they don't really collect that data. They call them white men. Just like they call black trans women black men when they get murdered or when they get killed or they find their body somewhere. I think that we need to start focusing on the intersections of why these violence attacks are happening and stop blaming the trans girls for their own demise, right? Stop saying, well, if they stop tricking them, that they wouldn't be out here getting killed.
And that's not true. And that's just not true.
They're not tricking them.
It's not. I don't think it's the tricking. I think it's a matter of. It's not the matter of tricking. It's a matter of the dudes are just ashamed. I mean, they know that y'all are beautiful. Y'all are just beautiful women. And y'all. I mean, it's them. It's
and
not,
that they can get away with the violence.
So where does that stem from? That stems from the toxic masculinity, the patriarchy, the misogyny, right? And who perpetuates that? Black women perpetuate. I'm not shaming black women. I love black women, but black women hold black men at such a regard that these black men feel like they cannot be themselves, because any sign of a slight bit of a difference, they're weak. They're considered less than. And who wants to be considered the less than? No one does, right? So we have to talk to black women about how they treat their black sons. We have to talk to Black women about how they address their Black sons who may be a little bit effeminate or who may like feminine things, right? Because it starts there. It starts with the internal hate within their own homes that then turns out to be resentment and then turns out to be hate, which then turns out to be murders of us.
I don't know, sis. That's a whole different conversation because a lot of women don't raise their Black sons like that. You know what I'm saying? So that's like, you know. But I'm not gonna say it's not. I'm not gonna say it's not all true. But I know that.
But you gotta be careful, Bam, because 1 in 6 Black women experience violence, and it's within our community. So that's like putting somebody use the example of taking a gun, a 6 chamber, putting one bullet in it, rolling it, and being like, not all, but bam, and hoping for the best. So I feel you, but we got to keep challenging it because we're not doing enough. All this violence out here, we not doing enough. Gun violence, all of that. We got to get into the community, feed our people, and get our people our resources so we can get out the streets.
Women. I love Black women. I'm not blaming Black women. However, you have to remember, Black men are operating off of the admiration of Black women, right? Whether they want to admit it or not, they may not see women as valuable, but they value the way women look at them just as much as they value the way Black men look at them. Most of Black communities are not raised with two-family homes, right? Two-parent homes. Most of them are single-parent homes. And 9 times out of 10, it's the Black women who are raising these Black men to become Black men. Right? So where do you think they're learning their negative connotation or ideas? I don't raise no punk. I don't raise no punk. I don't want no punk in my house. I don't care what you do. Don't be no punk.
Yeah.
Don't be no punk, right?
Yeah. I guess I'm not disagreeing with you. Yeah.
Yeah,
I wasn't disagreeing
with you, but
I guess it was
that
like
kind of mentality comes from Black men and Black women. But really quickly, y'all, we have definitely gone over the time, and this conversation alone has let me know that this will definitely not be the last time that we have this type of conversation and this type of dialogue, because it is definitely needed. I just want to personally thank everybody for coming on the panel tonight. Again, we have got a lot to work to do. We have got a lot of conversations to get across, and this is how we're going to start. And this is only the beginning. We are going to continue these conversations. We're going to have panels with LGBTQ, the lesbian, population. We're going to go through the entire alphabet of the LGBTQ and have these conversations and dissect some of these issues, and then come together as a collaborative to see how we can move forward in 2021 to better our community. I'm sorry, I did not introduce myself. My name is Charlotte Cha-Cha Davis. I am the founder of We Exist LLC, which uplifts the voices of Black LGBTQ. With that being said, Black Beauty, are you still on the line with us? Is she still here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so again, I just wanted to thank everybody. Natalia, did you want to say anything really quickly before we let this beautiful queen close us out with another beautiful spoken word to get us all back grounded and centered before we get off this call?
I just want to thank each and every one of you for finding it not robbery to sit on this panel. You were much appreciated, and we will definitely have a round 2 of this topic, and we will bring you all back for another round of our forum with Unspoken Treasure. Thank you.
Thank you all so very much. Take us out, babe. Take us out.
Okay. Wow, that was an awesome conversation, and I cannot wait until part 2.
You can give a little snippet, since you can give your little feed in really quickly on anything that you might want to add in, babe. You like, honestly, I got other stuff for you.
No, I don't have anything to add. I just really appreciated the conversation and the many different topics that were talked about, because these are the conversations that we need to have, right? Within our community, very much so, because we deal with a lot of homophobia, transphobia, and all these different buying into the stereotypes and a lot of mind control. So I think like having these conversations and bringing some awareness is so beneficial to our community. Because if we don't have us, who will? We are all we got, So this piece is a really short piece, and sorry, fellas, I wrote this for the ladies, but this is a really short piece, and it's entitled "I'm the fucking shit." Is it okay for me to use that language?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. I'm the fucking shit. Black Nubian queens, you know we the baddest. Don't mean to toot my own horn, but toot toot, I'm the fucking shit. Highly melanated, very educated, making generational history, the first in my family to make it. Don't mean to be cocky, just confident, because I had to realize that I'm the fucking shit. Listen, Black Nubian goddesses, you know we the hottest. From our glistening skin tones to our beautiful prominent features, no wonder they want to be us. It's not being sassy, just confident, classy. If I was you, I'd want to be me too. Hell, why not? I'm the fucking shit. I get it from my mama, my grandmama, my auntie, yes, my ancestors too. Yeah, they knew they were the fucking shit too. That's why my swag is dripping swag goo. You know, I had to give a quick shout out to the Queen Bee. But now to my beautiful sun-kissed goddesses, take this as your mantra and listen to me. Black queens, celebrate who you are. Deeply melanated, highly educated, attempted to be duplicated but never replicated because we are the originators. We are the fucking shit, period.
Thank you, Bae.
Thank
With
you.
that being said, we're going to close out. Natalia, thank you again. Love you so much, love. And we have definitely got to do this. Natalia, we got to get on it, baby. We got to get on it.
Yes, we do. We do.
I'm sorry, Regina.
We got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of work to do. Mwah. Love you all, and good night.
Later.